Donald Trump shouted "wait, wait" to his security service detail who wanted him off the platform, where a gunman came within millimetres of ending the former president's life. Trump stood up and got the image he wanted. It's him standing bloodied but unbowed. With that image, the presidential race might already be over. I very much doubt whether an obviously failing Joe Biden or even a stand-in can save the situation for the Democrats. If the prospect of a second Trump presidency puts Europe in shock, it's the worst thing that could happen to our newly elected Prime Minister Keir Starmer, whose foreign policy, like his mentor Blair, is to stick as closely as he can to America. What is Plan B for Starmer if Trump does return to the White House? To return to Europe, not as a member of the EU, but as the leader of NATO's northern flank? And what happens in the Middle East, where a second Trump presidency could, if it followed the pattern of the first one, see Gaza permanently reoccupied with the establishment of Jewish settlements? His son-in-law and Middle East advisor Jared Kushner did muse that Gaza did contain prime seafront real estate. The deeply unstable international landscape exposes the dangers, some would say folly, of consciously putting the clock back 20 years in search for a vision. Not only are centrist governments in crisis all over the Western world for fostering a growing wealth gap and failing to sustain a welfare state, not only do they attempt to defend liberal democracy with increasingly illiberal means, and not only is this collapsing order primarily responsible for the rise of the far right, but the particular centrist that Starmer has turned to for inspiration has a spectacular history of failure in the Middle East. By invading Iraq, Blair committed the worst and most consequential mistake in British foreign policy in the Middle East since the Suez Crisis. He invaded Iraq on a false premise, unleashed a bitter sectarian civil war, destroyed the country and created the incubator for an even more vicious version of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic State group. Have we really run out of tyres so quickly that we are forced to use retreads? On top of that, is Starmer's mandate as secure as he makes out? He got a large parliamentary majority on a wafer-thin number of votes. Starmer only got 34% of the vote, 600,000 fewer votes than Jeremy Corbyn received in 2019 and 3 million votes fewer than the former Labour leader got in 2017. In constituencies with a large Muslim majority, the message to Starmer was even clearer. In the 20 top Muslim constituencies, Labour's share of the vote dropped by between 15 and 44.6%. The Muslim vote has since been smeared as sectarian. How strange that that word was not used when the chief rabbi, Ephraim Mirvis, said in 2019 that Jeremy Corbyn was unfit for office and that Britain's soul was at stake. How strange that the rabbi did not call out Boris Johnson for using indisputably anti-Semitic tropes in a book he wrote when he was Tory shadow minister, or for using a notorious racist as a contributor when he edited The Spectator. Starmer richly deserved the rejection of Muslims. He changed party policy by saying Labour would only recognise a Palestinian state acceptable to Israel. He voted against a ceasefire in Gaza repeatedly when it mattered and told LBC Radio that Israel had the right to withhold power and water from Gaza. He banned elected representatives from attending pro-Palestinian rallies, and he refused to meet any delegation from them. Now, he can call that vote what he wants, but to get it back he needs to do 5 things. Firstly, Britain should recognise a Palestinian state without waiting for Israel's permission, which is like waiting for Godot. It will never come. The state of Palestine is recognised as a sovereign state by 145 of the 193 member states of the United Nations. It is long past time that Britain should become one of them. Secondly, Britain should immediately reinstate funding for UNRWA, the only UN agency capable of providing education, disaster relief, employment, healthcare and nutrition for Palestinian refugees in Gaza and all over the Arab world. How can you argue for a Palestinian state and yet help Israel destroy its education system, which is provided solely by UNRWA? Thirdly, Britain could respect international law for the very reason that as the US is a declining world power, the UK will have to rely on persuasion and a rules-based law order rather than brute force or economic sanctions. It should be obvious that Britain cannot advocate a rules-based world order if it breaks all the rules over its support for Israel. Fourthly, Britain should drop its objections to the International Criminal Court, which is currently considering an arrest warrant for Netanyahu. Britain has come under pressure from Washington to maintain its legal objection. Will Starmer buckle under his first real test of pressure? Many think he will. Fourthly, David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, should publish the advice of government lawyers on the legality of continuing to supply arms to Israel during acts of war which contravene the Genocide Convention and the Geneva Convention. As Shadow Foreign Secretary, David Lammy said that he had serious concerns about the conduct of the Israeli military in Gaza and urged the then government to publish legal advice on arms sales to Israel. There is nothing to stop him doing so now. Will he? Fifthly, Starmer should break the habit of a lifetime by meeting and engaging with representatives of the Muslim community. The signs are not encouraging. Blair created the Sufi Muslim Council in 2006 and the now defunct Quilliam Foundation was launched in 2008. Both were clumsy government attempts to fashion good Muslims Blair could show he was talking to. Both failed because they had no legitimacy. The same is happening now. The Middle East Eye reported that the Labour Party is supporting the creation of a new Muslim group intended to become the primary point of engagement with Muslim communities, bypassing the Muslim Council of Britain. Starmer should stop this nonsense. It doesn't work. Creating fake pro-government organisations is what autocrats like Vladimir Putin does. The way to re-engage the Muslim community in Britain is to change policy. Will Starmer do it? I doubt it. The people of Britain may have voted for a change of leadership, but they have yet to get a change of government.